Hello, good morning. Last year, some friends and I, we quite often used to go down the Gower, and we used to have fires down the beach, and we used to go walking a lot down there, and I love the Gower, so I really enjoyed that. But the thing with the Gower, and if you live there you'll have a better idea than me, is that I'm pretty sure you reach a point where there's very few houses and the streetlights don't exist. And so it can get quite dark quite quickly. David talks about darkness in verse 4 of Psalm 23. And some translations put it like this: even though I walk through the darkest valley. And you can imagine walking through a valley in a desert or in the wilderness and it just being pitch black. And you would have no idea if a bandit or a wild animal was just feet in front of you. This is the kind of image that David is painting for us, that our walk with God can sometimes be a bit like this. And Paul says in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12 that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against spiritual darkness. And even when Jesus is sending out the 12 apostles, he says in Matthew 10:16, I'm sending you out as sheep amongst wolves. And you almost have to ask Jesus, I think I would if I was there, like, Jesus, don't you know what happens to sheep when they come into contact with wolves? Like, have you got a plan B? I don't like the sound of this. But the reality is that God's people often find themselves in dark situations. But the next thing that David says in the psalm is, I will not fear, for you are with me. And there's the light that David had to walk through the dark valleys, that God was with him. He didn't say, I will not fear, for I have my trusty sling in my pocket. His trust was fully in God. How often do we put our trust in our own strength, on our own efforts? We think we're strong when really we're weak. But have we made ourselves too big and God too small? Spurgeon once said, God doesn't ask for your strength. He has plenty of his own. He asks for your weakness. He has none of that. And finally, David concludes by using two kind of ordinary objects that a shepherd would have in those days. He says, your rod and your staff comfort me. Now, a rod, you can imagine, was like a short, thick club kind of thing that the shepherd would use to protect the sheep from prey. So it's for protection. And then he says your staff, which was obviously a lot taller and a lot thinner, but it would be used to guide the sheep. So guidance and protection. And David again is coming back to this idea of the Lord being his shepherd. In verse 1 he said that the Lord is the shepherd and he makes him lie down, and then we get to verse 3 and he says that sometimes I need turning around, my soul needs restoring. And now he's saying in verse 4 that sometimes I just find myself in dark places. But in all of these things, the Lord is my shepherd. So whatever you're feeling this morning, whatever place you're in, may you know that the Lord is your shepherd, and may you place your confidence completely in him.